Welcome to ISB, Mr. Sinha. We have a few issues about the Civil Aviation Ministry that we wanted to understand, and from you, your vision about it and so on. So, let me start with the most obvious issue about Air India. So, it has lately been doing relatively well, but it has been in the red and been troubled for a long time. What is your short-term, medium and long-term goal for Air India?
Well, of course, as you know, the strategic disinvestment process for Air India is underway. The Cabinet has taken an in-principle decision for the strategic disinvestment, and the Cabinet Committee for Economic Affairs has constituted an alternative mechanism to actually ensure that the process moves forward smoothly. We are just at the stage of appointing a transaction advisor. The transaction advisor will then go through and speak to potential bidders, provide them the data and all of the information they need to actually put their bids together. So we are well along as far as the process is concerned for strategic disinvestment. Obviously, we will have to see what the results of the process are, but as far as the government is concerned, we are hoping to bring this to a successful conclusion relatively soon.
And one of the really nice initiatives that the government took was about this regional connectivity through UDAN, and like we were earlier discussing about these helicopters and services to remote areas. What has your experience been so far about that?
We've had a very successful rollout of UDAN. UDAN stands for उड़े देश का आम नागरिक, और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा था जब उड़ान का हमने उद्घाटन किया था शिमला में कि हमारा लक्ष्य है कि हवाई चप्पल वाले भी हवाई जहाज पे बैठें, हवाई चप्पल वाले भी हवाई जहाज पे बैठें. And the thinking is that, flying, if you look at most developed countries, is something that everybody does. It's become very affordable, it's become very convenient. And so the goal with UDAN is to make flying very affordable and to ensure that tier 3 and tier 4 towns that are not connected right now are connected to the aviation network. In 75 years of civil aviation in India, we had only 75 operational airports. With UDAN and the bidding that has happened with UDAN, we have been able to add 30 additional airports to the aviation network in 1 year. So while we were operating at the rate of 1 airport a year, in this year, this is 2017, we will add 30 new airports to our aviation network. We will go from 75 operational airports to 106 operational airports. You all should do a case on UDAN. Now, the reason why UDAN has been so successful is because we've thought through very carefully from the point of view of an airline, what is going to make it attractive for them to set up flights in tier 3 and tier 4 towns. And these tier 3 and tier 4 towns are not small towns. I mean, we have Ludhiana, we have Jalandhar, we have Gwalior, we have Kanpur, we have Jamshedpur, we have Mysore. These are the kinds of towns that we are connecting through UDAN. In any other country in the world, they would have 20, 30, 50 flights a day. We're talking about adding a flight or two a day to these very large cities. Kanpur is a city of 30, 40 lakhs, and imagine it didn't have any flight service. So we had to create an appropriate policy package that would motivate airlines to add flights here, and that's what we've done. The policy package operates at multiple levels. First, we have the support of the state governments in doing so, which was vitally important. And because we have the support of the state governments, we have reduced taxes on aviation turbine fuel in these UDAN airports from typically 30 to 40% to just 3%. So if you refuel in Mysore, you are going to pay 3% in taxes. Airport charges have been waived. So when you fly into Mysore and you don't pay any airport landing charges, you don't pay for police, you don't pay for fire. And when you land back in Chennai, which is the Mysore-Chennai connection that I just kicked off 2 or 3 days ago, you don't pay any airport charges in Chennai as well. So we waived that off also. Then the other thing that we've done is we have provided viability gap funding. We've put a price cap. We've said for an hour of flying, you can't charge more than 2,500 rupees, and 50% of your seats have to be within that price cap. And you have to now bid for the subsidy level that you want. 2,500 is the max. And so people have bid for how much subsidy they want for 50% of their seats. What we found is that a lot of airlines have bid for very low subsidies, and I'll tell you why. Because the final thing that we've done, which has made it very attractive, is to provide a 3-year exclusivity. So if I win Delhi Kanpur, which is what SpiceJet did, they get a 3-year exclusive to fly Delhi Kanpur. And that, of course, was very attractive to them. And this 3-year exclusive was so valuable that they in fact bid zero subsidy to fly Delhi-Kanpur. They got the 3-year exclusive, they got the lower taxes, they got the zero airport charges. The way we are paying for the subsidies is by charging a levy on all non-Udan flights. So when you're flying Delhi-Mumbai, or you're going to fly Chandigarh-Hyderabad very soon, your plane is going to pay a levy of 5,000 rupees, which will be going into the regional connectivity fund, which will then pay for the subsidy. The total subsidy that we'll be giving out through Udan Round 1 is only 200 crores. So for 200 crores of subsidy that passengers are paying, government is not paying, passengers will be paying, it's a cross subsidy. For 200 crores, we've been able to open up 30 new airports. And that's because we've designed the policy package in such a way, the exclusivity, the waiving of taxes, the waiving of airport charges, that it becomes very attractive economically for airlines to actually go and open up these airports. Prior to Udan, the top 8 airports accounted for some 60 or 70% of all of the traffic in India, and that was still growing very strongly. So if I was an airline, I found that it was more profitable for me to add a flight from Delhi to Bangalore than to add a flight from Delhi to Kanpur. And so we had to change the playing field in such a way that it became more attractive to fly to Kanpur than to fly to Bangalore, and that's when SpiceJet decided to bid for Kanpur. So we had to, the policy package was designed in a way so that we could change their economics. And we did that because we truly understood exactly what the economics of flying are, what their business models are, and how to actually provide appropriate incentives so that this would happen.
I mean, this is clearly a game changer, no doubt about it. What has been the biggest challenge that you have faced in this whole process of getting it off the ground?
There were many challenges. I would suggest that one of the more important ones was to make sure that all the states are on board. But now virtually every single state has signed an MOU with the Ministry of Civil Aviation so that they would provide the necessary support, that is the waiving of the taxes, the waiving of some of the airport charges. And because we wanted them to have ownership of it, they are paying for 20% of the subsidy. 80% is being paid for passengers, 20% are being paid by the states, because we wanted them to take ownership of this. So getting the states on board and having the states think in this very sophisticated, nuanced way about changing the incentives for airlines was something that took us a lot of work. The second thing that took us a lot of work was to ensure that all the airports were functional and ready and had passed all the DGCA and safety requirements so that we could launch these 30 airports very quickly, and we were able to get through all of that. The third was obviously to persuade airlines. Initially, the airlines actually filed a lawsuit against Udan saying that we couldn't charge them a cross subsidy. But we convinced the airlines that it was actually in their best interest to expand the network. This would mean more balanced growth across the network would grow, their hubs would grow, and this was actually in their own interest. And through a series of lengthy discussions with the airlines, I myself did a lot of those, we were able to persuade them. Now they've withdrawn their court case and they're fully on board. And I would say that the biggest evidence that they are on board is the fact that Indigo, which is India's leading airline, has placed an order for 50 turboprop ATRs, 50 turboprop ATRs, which broke their business model because previously they were only flying jets, the A320s. They decided to change their business model because this is how important Udan was, tier 3 and tier 4 connectivity was. They spent 10,000 crores, $1.5 billion to place an order for 50 ATRs. Similarly, SpiceJet has placed an order for 50 Q400s so that they can take advantage of Udan as well. Jet Airways is coming into the picture. Alliance Air, which is an Air India subsidiary, already has 20 ATRs. So this whole regional aviation market has just exploded in size. So we have the national aviation market, which was the top metros. Now we have the regional market. And with Udan Round 2, what we're trying to do is to get to the remote aviation market as well, get more flights into Kulu, get helicopters to the Valley of Flowers, get helicopters operating in the Northeast. And so in Round 2, which has just started, we have provided the subsidies and the incentives so that smaller planes and helicopters also get an appropriate amount of incentives so that we can get the remote market going as well.
I mean, clearly this is, civil aviation is a very critical sector for the economy. Going forward, what are your priorities, say, until 2019 and later?
Our priority, of course, is to ensure that we have a safe and secure expansion of aviation across the country. Today, this particular year, fiscal 18, we'll probably do 200 million passenger trips. We have doubled the size of the aviation market in the last 4 years, which is extraordinary. There's no other large market that's growing at the rate that India is growing right now. So we've doubled the market in the last 4 years. But this is just the first day of the test match. We've got a long way to go. At 200 million passenger trips, we compare to about 500, 600 million passenger trips in China and about 900 million passenger trips on a base of only 330 million people in the US. So we've got a long way to go. We've ordered a lot of planes. India country has more planes on order than any other country. We've got 500 planes in the sky. 650 more planes have been ordered. Our airports are congested and crowded. We are running out of airspace with the current sort of airspace and air force restrictions that we have. So we have to really plan for a situation where we are going to triple the passenger traffic going forward over the next 15 years or so. So that's what we have to work towards, which is the safe and secure expansion of the aviation sector, because it is something that people are now finding as very attractive in terms of their transportation alternatives. And you know, I've coined this term. You've heard of grid parity, where you look at renewable energy and you say it's at grid parity. I've coined this term where I say we are at rail parity. We are at rail parity because today the price of flying is equal to the price of upper class AC rail travel. And so once you get to that price point, rail parity, you find that there's a tremendous amount of traffic that starts to move from the Shatabdis and the Rajdhanis and so on into aviation, and we are seeing that. The other aspect of rail parity, by the way, is that if you look at the number of passengers, we've done 160 million passenger trips last year. We'll do close to 200 million passenger trips this year. The total amount of people traveling on railways in upper class AC travel is about 130 million. So 13 crores. So if you add domestic and international for airline traffic, we've already exceeded upper class travel for railways. So that's another way of thinking about rail parity. And then finally, if you look at it in terms of revenues, the revenues of Indian Railways in total, not including subsidies, but the revenues of Indian Railways are about 1.7, 1.8 lakh crores. And if you look at the revenues of the Indian airline industry, domestic flying plus international flying, it's also about 1.7, 1.8 lakh crores. So we reach rail parity in terms of turnover as well. And what people haven't fully grappled with or understood, that even India's telecom industry, which is about 1.8 lakh crores, is at the same scale as India's airline industry. So this is a very big industry. Our companies are doing very well. We've got Indigo with a market cap of almost 50,000 crores. We've got Jet Airways and SpiceJet with a market cap of about 10,000 crores. We've got Go Air, we've got Air Asia, we've got Vistara, of course we've got Air India. So we have a number of very, very successful large players. And as we move forward, I think like in the US, like in Europe, like in China, we are going to have 2 or 3 large airline groups that are flying different brands. You can have a full service international carrier, you can have a low cost domestic carrier, you can have a regional airline. Each of these is different business models, different brands, and our airline groups are going to be the size of airline groups around the world. An American Airlines, international airline group that owns British Airways and Iberia, Singapore Airlines that owns Scoot and Singapore Air, all of that, and be 25, 30, $50 billion market cap companies. So it's a very exciting future that we see for our aviation industry going forward.
So finally, one last question. I mean, under Prime Minister Modi's vision for New India that you see going forward, what do you see the role of civil aviation in that?
Of course, it's a very attractive transportation alternative. We've got multiple transportation possibilities. Obviously, railways, we've got road, we've got waterways, we've got aviation as well. In any advanced, sophisticated economy, all of these different transportation alternatives are being utilized. Each of them has different strengths and weaknesses. So we think, aviation will grow. Today, if you look at China, as I said, China is at 500, 600 million passenger trips, but they built out a fabulous high-speed rail network. So it's not either or. We have to build up all of these transportation alternatives. We have 1.3 billion people. They will travel for work, for business, for family, for social purposes. And so we have to provide them all these different transportation alternatives.
Well, we truly appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you.